Great. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you all. I am logging in from Albany today, and I'm sorry that Senator Kavanagh could not be here due to some of our legislative responsibilities. He is currently in Senate session this morning, and so due to votes on the state budget extender, he's not able to join, but we are lucky to have his Chief of Staff, Emily Lang, here. Um, I want to give a special welcome and thanks to Deputy Mayor Julia Kerson's office for joining us today. Also, it has been almost 3 months since we last met, and over the past few months, our offices and the city team have continued working closely with the community in preparation for construction and to address ongoing issues and outstanding concerns. So we greatly appreciate DDC and the rest of the city team for hosting the community design workshops in the meantime. And we thank all the community members, especially the members who are on this call today, for being here and participating and sharing their suggestions. So I just jumped on, and I want to also give an opportunity to our elected officials if they would like to say something. I see Council Member Christopher Marte is on. If you'd like to say a few words, Chris.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Assemblymember Grace Lee, for jumping in. I know it's a busy day in Albany, and of course, thank you to all the community members and stakeholders for being here. It's great that we have the Deputy Mayor's office on this call today. It's something that we've asked for at the last meeting when I don't think there was any representative from the mayor's office, and we continue to advocate to have the mayor's office or the deputy mayor's office to meet with the community about the alternative plans and to see what's possible. But I look forward to today's presentation, and I know we have additional meetings later this week, and I look forward to that as well. Thanks.
And recognize Congressman Dan Goldman's office, who is here. Wesley, you. Um, so
I just don't want my
thank you
being
also for
recorded
joining.
below my face. There we go.
If everyone can mute unless they are speaking, that would be incredibly helpful to all of us. Begin with a presentation from the city team on the construction, and then that will be followed with a Q&A. So now I will pass it on to our city colleagues to start the presentation.
Thanks, Grace. And I would just want to very quickly add, on the city team side, we have a number of representatives here today. We're not going to go through introductions for everybody, but I think most of the speakers will be familiar faces to most of you. And of course, we are joined by representatives from the Department of Design and Construction, the Department of Correction, the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, and as Assemblymember Lee said earlier, we also have a representative from the Deputy Mayor's Office on with us today. So we're all pleased to be here to share updates about what's been going on for the last few months and what's upcoming, which I think is most important, and what we expect the impacts might be on the surrounding community and what the team is proactively doing to mitigate those impacts. So with that, I will turn it over to George Argyris from our design build team, our partner on this project, to go through a brief presentation. And then again, as Assemblymember said, we will open it up for questions. So thank you all for your time today.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. And good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and really appreciate your time. Again, for the second time here, we'll go through our agenda. Not much has changed since we last met, other than just refining our plans, and we want to share that with you today. We'll go through some very quick introductions, look at the schedule, look at the project site, where we are as of today, what we're planning to go in 2026 in terms of work, and of course, community impacts and mitigation. And then we'll look at some frequently asked questions and go into Q&A. So starting off, we have Tutor Perini O&G, which is the design builder. We're representing DDC, the PMC, which is ACOM Hill, Department of Corrections, MOCJ, and Correctional Health Services. HOK is our architect and engineer of record. And of course, below that, there's multiple sub-consultants on the design side, and on subcontractors on the construction side. Looking at the project schedule, we're going to focus on 2026. Right now, we are going into construction phase. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to be starting to do some preparation work for our SOE, or supportive excavation, which really starts in mid-May. We'll get into more details in a little bit, but this preliminary work will include some of the demolition and removal of the old remnant structures that are in the way of the new building. Later in the year, we'll look at some caissons, and then, of course, setting the baseline for dewatering. This is a topic that we've discussed last time we met. The project location, everybody's familiar with this. We are right in the heart of Civic Center and Chinatown, so we're right between Center Street and Baxter. To the north, we have the Chunk Pack building, and to the south, we have the courthouse. This might seem similar, familiar to those who joined us last time. We have our pedestrian route here surrounding the site in green. And of course, we have our site perimeter here, as you can see right here. Walking around the site here from Center Street, moving north, we have the courthouse Sallyport, which is fully functional. We are coordinating with Mach J and the courts in our construction traffic and their operations, so we keep that as seamless as possible. Their operations run almost around the clock, so it's imperative that we coordinate with them. Our deliveries, as the main artery of supporting our site, is going to be Center Street. You can see here this arrow going into the site, where we have captured one traffic lane and going up north, exiting back towards Walker. As we walk around Chunk Pack building, you'll see pedestrian traffic remains the same. Going around Baxter, very similar here. We have taken one lane of traffic to enable us to support our logistics efforts. And the pedestrian traffic, of course, is going across the street on the eastern face of Baxter and right on down towards Bayard. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So this is what our site looks like as of 1 week ago. We have been doing some site preparation work. You can see some old foundation elements here, some concrete that's been chopped. This has been since then removed, and we're really starting to grade and prep the site for our production work. So what's been completed to date? So far, we've been working Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. We have done a lot of site investigation activity. We have done test borings, test pits for our geotechnical design. We've also conducted some load testing recently in the past couple of months to make sure that the existing piles are matching to what our initial findings were in our initial investigations. We've done some cutting and capping of existing utilities on Center, some surveying, and of course, Con Edison has been very active in and around our site with their decommissioning work of their infrastructure. Moving on to 2026. So starting in the next week or two, we are going to be doing this preliminary work, which is going to be, as I mentioned, removing some portions of the old building that are in the way of the new foundation and the new SOE. So that will happen starting next week with mobilization. Those work hours are going to be from 6 a.m. to midnight, although the majority of the production work is going to be happening between 7 a.m. and into the evening hours. The last couple of hours in that shift are really to demobilize and prep for the next day. We also plan to use Saturdays, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. to make up for rain days and prepare for the next week. Same goes for May onto the rest of the year, same working hours. In May is when we really plan to start our supportive excavation, which you'll see a big difference on the site in terms of the equipment that will be mobilized. I'll show you exactly what that equipment will look like. That will enable us to start CCAM piles, excavation, and later in the year, caisson work. Of Of course, there's some remaining work for utilities on Center and Baxter, and we should be completed with the majority of this work by the end of summer. Dewatering, we're going to start baselining sometime in late summer, but really the dewatering operations to start at the end of the year around December. This image here shows where we're going to primarily be doing our early works, where there's some foundation structures we'll be removing and some old piles. And we'll start from the north and move south. So this is the work we're planning to start in the next 2 weeks. And we're highlighting these corners as that's where the vast majority of this work will take place. Moving into May, this is really when the major operations will start. You can see here a lot more equipment on site. We have drill rigs. I'll show you what that physically looks like in just a moment. But we're starting from the north and kind of moving south. There'll be drill rigs, there'll be service cranes, and some loaders, which I'll show you what that will look like. We have already mobilized one trailer, but there will be additional trailers on site to support all the workforce that will be doing these operations. No changes to the gates. Here we have our gates coming up near the existing sally port. To minimize impact, you can see here we've added a soil removal route. So any soil that we're removing as we're excavating, we want to bring it mostly from this White Street exit and go right out onto White Street. And we have been coordinating with DOT in terms of the road work, and we'll get into that in a couple of slides here. Same with Baxter, no change from what we previously presented. We have our gates here on the northern end of Baxter and here further south going towards courthouse. Once we go towards the end of summer and approaching the fall, we plan to start caisson operations. This is what I foreshadowed earlier. By that point in time, the secant piles will be towards the south of the site and will be really in the center here, installing caissons. What these caissons do, these are part of the foundation. They are drilled cylinders that go down into bedrock to secure the foundation structure and the building into the earth. So the operation is moving north to south. This is a familiar image we presented previously as the dewatering operations, just in concept. This is a pretty common practice when we do deep excavations or even in some occasions tunneling. We will be wanting to maintain the water table all around the site, but really within the site footprint, we want to bring the water table down so we can access certain elevations to install both caissons and concrete. So we'll have pumps set up, we'll have redundancy in that system, and we'll be constantly monitoring that. And we'll show you that in just a little bit. One thing to note here is this bracing that goes across. Once we start excavating, we'll be installing this cross-lot bracing or lateral bracing to keep the support of these SOE walls here on the side. And these, it's important to note, these SOE secant pile walls, there is no structural force from the building here. This is just to maintain the water table in the exterior of the building. Here are some of the equipment that we'll have on site. This is the drill rig. We'll have about 3 to start, and then probably around the fall, you'll see about 5 of these, about 100 feet tall. There'll be assist cranes to support all the heavy lifts, and of course, loaders and excavators to be moving earth around. Here are some examples of the major deliveries that are expected to come. These are the huge cylinders that are part of the secant walls, and later on the caissons. These will be delivered to site on a regular basis. Same here with rebar or reinforcement bar that goes in those caissons. These cross-lot bracing that we mentioned earlier, this is going to start in 2027, but we wanted to keep this on here just for awareness. And of course, concrete operations. There's these caissons and these sea cans get filled with concrete. So there will be concrete trucks coming in and out of the site, and there will be pumps helping to distribute that concrete in those areas. Of course, there'll be washout stations within the site. So before any of these trucks exit the site, we'll make sure they're clean so we don't make a mess on the streets. More importantly here, community impacts and mitigation. The most important thing and foremost is the site safety and the culture that we set, both as a company and to our client and to all parties that are involved. We take safety very seriously. We have a very strong track record, not just in New York, but throughout the country. We make sure that this culture, this safety attitude is embedded to all the workers and all the visitors. We have safety stand downs very often just to keep everybody up to date on the latest practices and what's going on site. So you will see that happening quite often. This is some photographs from Brooklyn. It's everybody's responsibility to maintain safety on site, not just the workers and the superintendents. It goes from the lowest level to the most executive level. So before anybody steps foot on site, they get trained. They have to have certain safety credentials so they can identify any potential risks for safety. Looking at project monitoring, of course, we have the tunnel that's running through Center Street. We go through very rigorous R&D here and design. We have submitted our plans to MTA, New York City Transit. Those have been approved, and we're now in the final stages with DOB in getting those approvals. There's a very robust monitoring system that is in place in the tunnel. It consists of vibration monitoring, monitoring of movement with certain type of sensors, which I'll show you in just a moment. And really critical, as this is ongoing construction, will be right against the tunnel. So we want to catch any type of movement well ahead of any danger. So that will be in place. Of course, the monitoring extends way beyond the tunnel. We have surrounding buildings that we're monitoring for the same parameters, vibration, movement. There's certain criteria that are set where there's an alert, and if there's just a slight difference in what we're seeing from baseline, and then of course a limit where we stop the work in that particular location. We investigate if it is something that's caused by our operations. We try to mitigate, and we do not start until that is addressed. Moving on to noise monitoring. This is a very important monitoring plan in terms of the community. We're monitoring during the day at 85 dBA over an 8-hour average, and at night at 75 dBA over that same average period. Again, the alert criteria goes for that as well. We have dust monitoring in place, and once we have dewatering operations, or a little bit before, we'll have ground monitoring. The ground monitoring, of course, like any other monitoring, we set a baseline, but in this case, because we're dealing with hydraulics, and since water is very fluid, excuse the pun, we want to set a baseline over an extended period of time. So we have some very strong alert criteria and accurate alert criteria. And even once we start the dewatering, we'll be reassessing that baseline as there's different fluctuations in water on the outside, whether it's a storm, whether it's the tunnel pumping water out of their tunnel, and any other environmental factors. So we'll be continuously monitoring that baseline. Here are some examples of the equipment. This is a vibration monitor. There's a crack gauge, sound level meter. We have here these automated total stations which communicate with these prisms. They're constantly shooting back and forth to each other, communicating to, advise of any type of movement. And here's a dust monitor with all the sensors on it there. Here's the monitoring locations. They are distributed throughout the perimeter of the site. Of course, we have the properties on Baxter, on Center, and we have Chunk Pack to the north, which we should update this because we have added a number of monitors since we last met in this building, and of course in the courthouse. So it's a pretty robust system. You can see here, this line represents the tunnel. So this is Center Street underneath. Dust and noise mitigation, not just looking at the monitoring, we want to really apply mitigation to the equipment and the practices we use on site. In terms of dust control, we're going to be spraying constantly on site. We're going to be covering any type of loads that are coming in and out of the site with material. Wheel wash stations, both for soil and concrete. And for air quality and noise monitoring will be, of course, idling rules are in effect. No idling except for the concrete trucks because they have to keep working so the concrete doesn't cure. We will be blanketing engines as needed for our equipment. We're looking at putting up temporary barriers and shielding in certain areas of increased noise. And we've already conducted studies for specific pieces of equipment on other job sites to make sure that we don't have the same issues here. So we'll be communicating any type of higher noise activities to the owner and all the stakeholders. And those reports will be going out monthly. Of course, we have our community construction liaison. I'm sure a lot of you already have this contact information, and we are opening a new location within the next month or 6 weeks near the project, so you can actually come and visit. Our previous location was on Baxter, but we are opening a new location that will be just a little bit more permanent and cozy for people that visit, more comfortable. All right, frequently asked questions. This is a very sensitive topic, working hours. Can you be more specific about work going on between 6 p.m. and midnight? The activities that will be happening during this window of time will be work that cannot overlap with daytime activities. Some of the work, once down the line in about 2 or 3 years, once we start going vertical, the steel erection activities will be going into the evening hours, but primarily will be extending the daytime shift into the early evening and then preparing for the next day of work, whether it's lay down, form work, welding, and such. Construction is going until midnight. Why are the hours so long? The main answer here is it's a very aggressive schedule. We have dates that are mandated by law to meet, so we have to really compress the schedule. This is a design build, so even the design is ongoing as we construct. So that's the main reason. Second reason is just operationally, there's certain activities that cannot overlap during the day, and that's more due to equipment and safety and how close they can work together. A good example might be the use of the crane during the day to erect, whether it's steel or curtain wall, might not be able to run concurrent, so we might have to run some curtain wall in the evening hours or cells. So it's really a fine dance between overlapping certain activities that use shared resources and do not want to make any safety risks to the site. Could you please tell us the transportation routes for trucks and freight movement? Right now, we are dealing with Department of Transportation. They've been working very closely with us in terms of the surrounding projects. and what the construction zones are on those roadways. So we're coordinating with them. We're coordinating with the courts, with the Sally Port next to us to keep from the congestion to a minimum. But the exact routes we have not pinned down yet, as we're still buying out, in the final phases of buying out certain big contracts for hauling out dirt and bringing in concrete. So we'll have better answers in the later months as we finalize these subcontracts. But the most important thing is that we communicate with Department of Transportation, and we're all dancing to the same song here. How will the city address noise pollution and potential health impacts? We mentioned the dust monitoring. That is a PM 10 or particulate matter 10 standard. We have optical monitors and vibration sensors. All these are going to be monitoring pollution and health impacts, whether it's dust, air noise, or even structural risks to adjacent structures. So we have our monitoring in place, and we'll be constantly looking at that. What type of inspections will there be for damage to surrounding buildings? Most importantly, a lot of inspections have already occurred with site surveys. We go and do photo inspections, video inspections. We install crack cages to areas where there's existing damage to make sure that they don't get impacted by the construction. So that will be our baseline. And of course, as we monitor these buildings for movement and vibration, those will be big indicators of whether there's any damage or before the damage even potentially starts. So we don't anticipate there to be damage. The design of the building is made so we avoid any of that. And of course, DOB and all the other agencies will not approve us going into construction without these minimum requirements being set. All right, so how much water needs to be removed, and can you guarantee that nearby structures will not be affected? This is for dewatering, I'm assuming. So the exact quantities are going to be variable only because it's there's environmental factors that impact the dewatering. There's going to be storms that come in that will increase the water flow within the water table. There will be maybe a snow melt. There might be the tunnel. MTA might be pumping water out. So those dewatering quantities will fluctuate. Of course, once we get into a year or a year and a half of the dewatering operation, we'll set some averages. So we'll be able to answer on that note, but that will take some time. And the next question is kind of tied to this, is whether we will be running pumps 24/7 and what happens if groundwater is encountered during excavation. So in terms of groundwater during excavation, the whole point of the dewatering is to keep the water level within a few feet of the bottom of excavation. One is for safety, so our equipment is steady, and two is just for efficiency. But that system is going to be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It may not be running because it might not need to pump out water, but that system will be on around the clock. There's going to be the redundancy built around it. So if one pump fails, there's going to be secondary and tertiary pumps and wells that will be able to turn on if that is needed. Permits, what permits are still needed before construction start? As I mentioned earlier, we have been approved by MTA and New York City Transit. So right now we're in the final stages with DOB for our SOE and foundation. That work will take about 2 years, 2.5 years to complete. In the meantime, since this is a design build, the design is ongoing for the rest of the building and the enclosure. So around Q1, Q2 of next year, we're going to approach DOB again for our final permit for the actual building and all those elements that go up, which includes MEP systems, enclosure, the actual structural steel. So once the design is at a point of detail, probably around end of the year, early 27, we'll go again to DOB to get our final approval to go vertical. And of course, the PDC, Public Design Commission, is involved in that. And until we have their final approval, we won't be able to get DOB final approval to go vertical. Secant walls are your choice of method. What other methods of foundation creation have been explored? Has your firm done secant walls before at this depth? So the SOE system, it's not the foundation. The secant walls, which is the SOE, is for keeping the water out and enabling us to excavate. The foundation system is a mass concrete slab and foundation walls, which are secured to the earth with caissons. So those are two separate systems. In terms of secant walls and our company doing these types of systems, this is like our bread and butter. We have installed systems like this in New York, in multiple areas. We've installed systems like this throughout the country. And this is really a tested method. And we've not just within our company, but during the design build method and the early stages, we consult with our engineers, with HOK Structural, with other consultants. We look at subcontractors, and since they're the ones putting it in place, we ask for their advice and their input. So there's a lot of different means of information coming in, and this is the system we all decided to go with. All right, so that's the presentation. We'll open up for questions, please.
Thanks so much, George. So we did there's a question in the chat, and John has also patiently had his hand raised since I think midway through this presentation. So John, I can read your question out, but if you want to add any additional context, go right ahead. So George, the question was, so John is with the DCTV Firehouse, which is down the street on 87 Lafayette. So he wants to know, how will the folks in the DCTV Firehouse know what's happening to their groundwater level? Like if their piles get exposed, this has happened before. He has anecdotal evidence this has happened before in previous construction. And is their building being protected by monitoring? And it didn't seem like they were on the list. So could you speak a little bit to how the team is monitoring and protecting the firehouse? Absolutely.
So we will be installing monitoring. If we haven't done already, I need to confirm with my team at the firehouse. This is down at the west of the site, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a monitoring plan in place for the firehouse in terms of movement. In terms of groundwater, absolutely. The water table is monitored outside of the site. Even though there's no monitors beneath that structure, the key is to maintain the water table constant within outside of the site. So that will certainly address the groundwater issues for the firehouse. So we'll get back to you on the exact monitoring protocol that we have for the firehouse right away. But I know that's part of our monitoring plan. Let's see here. Let me go back to that slide. Let's see. Oh yeah, you can see here, there is a vibration monitor. Can you see my screen still?
Yes.
Yeah, so there is a vibration monitor to be installed at the firehouse. So that will certainly bring protection to the structure.
Okay, thanks, George.
Sure.
I think the next hand I saw go up was for Edward Cuccia. Edward, do you have a question?
Hi, hello everyone. Good morning. First of all, thank you, Grace Lee, for doing this for us today, and please tell Brian we said thank you as well. And just George, and everyone else to give a bit of background of who I am and what I'm doing. I'm an attorney down here in downtown Manhattan. My office was in the Chung Pak building. The noise and the vibrations and the conditions were so bad that we had to leave our office space. And I think I noticed Sherman Ang is on this as well. So I want to thank Sherman and the Chung Pak folks, we were able to work out an arrangement where my son was able to open up a market where our office was, and we moved our office about a block or two away, just because of the noise. We could no longer continue operations, and it was felt that a market would be less bothered by noise. So far, so good. It's been pretty quiet the last month. I have two questions, one specific and one general. Specific first. George, I noted you talked about the 85-75 on the noise meters. What happens when it's above, when the noise meters are above 85-75? Because previously, during the demolition phase, often interior noise was above 85, and I would call 311. We would walk over to the office on Walker Street, and we just felt like that was a complete waste of time. Will it similarly be a waste of time when the noise is above 85 now, or will something happen when the noise is above 85?
When the noise exceeds those limits, we will look at that specific source. If it's related to our construction, we will look at any mitigation methods. We will look at, if it's a drill rig, we'll look at putting additional mufflers or additional sound blankets around that operation. So we'll certainly look at mitigating that area.
I think I can say for myself, and probably everyone listening, that's not very comforting. All right. Number two, and this is more of a general point, since it looks like the construction is going to happen, I recall that when all this started, back when de Blasio was the mayor, Margaret Chin, the former city council person, promised that the tenants in Chung Pak, both commercial and residential, would receive compensation for the anticipated significant disturbance. She talked about, I forget, $3 million, $6 million going out. I am myself personally harmed by many hundreds of thousands, and I'll put an S in the back of that, personally, because I was forced to close my office and then open up a new office, and significant construction costs and moving costs and all of that were entailed. And I have not received one penny. No one I know in Chung Pak has received one penny. And I'm wondering, was this just nonsense? Were we just misled? Was this just words that were spoken to keep us quiet? Or is there something actually going to happen here? And for this, I'll speak both to myself personally and all of the commercial and residential tenants of Chung Pak, former and current. And thank you.
Edward, I appreciate your question. I will turn that over to DDC, and they can answer it for you.
Hi, Edward. It's Lauren. I'm not aware of promises that Margaret Chen made about compensation. I think as a general rule, the city does not provide, residents with compensation for impacts during construction. I don't know if anyone from City Hall is on who has any additional context to share, but that is not standard practice.
Yes, that is my understanding as well. I know that we're having conversations separately with Sherman and Chung Pak, so I think that's something that we can talk about the the broader organization, but generally that is not a type of compensation that is offered in these projects. But we weren't aware of that statement by the council member, so that's something we can look into the history of if there was anything made specifically by the borough-based jails team, but generally we're not aware of that statement by the council member.
Well, we've got it, I believe, in emails and I've mentioned this many, many, many times over the last few years. So we were lied to.
Edward, if you have this in an email, please do share it with our team. You can send that over to manhattanccl@bbjnyc.com. We'll drop that email address in the chat, although I think you have it. Oh, it's right here on the screen. And we will look into that. So please do forward anything that you have in writing. Thank you. Alice, I see your hand is up next.
Thanks, Lauren, and thanks for the review. The community board has received, in my role as head of environmental protection committee, a lot of concern about the environmental impacts of this project, and just wanted to review a little bit more specifically how you'll address some of this. I mean, specifically, we received something that had been foiled in terms of the DEP remedial action plan closure report with toxicities found in soil samples and the like. Is that something that you'll be reviewing or could review at the community board level so the public could be a little bit more aware of it and perhaps their concerns allayed a little bit? And is there something that the community should know about that report? That would be helpful to know. And also, I guess in line with that, is there some movement towards the idea that had been actually championed by our assembly member, Grace Lee, for an independent environmental consultant, as well as Chris Marte, as a matter of fact, Laura Dodge or someone like that who would be working with you at this point? I mean, where are we at with establishing that connection for oversight? Is there anything going on there? So I guess that's two questions.
Morning, Alice. So in terms of environmental studies, TPONG, we did conduct a geotechnical review and an environmental borings. Our findings produced really typical construction fill that you'd find throughout the city. There was no indication of environmental contamination. That was through a number of borings. Now, as we excavate, if we do find something, we'll surely raise awareness. In terms of the closure reports, I'll lean on DDC in terms of the closure reports from the previous dismantlement project. But that's the information that we have to date in terms of site investigation.
Now,
Is anyone else chiming on?
if there are specific questions that you had about information in the soil reports, please feel free to send them over. And if there's things that we can add into a slide or present or talk about specifically at the next touch point, we're happy to do so. So I don't know if there was something that had caught your attention in particular or had seemed like, hey, you want to drill into this in a little bit more detail. As George is saying, from their perspective, there was no evidence of, soil toxicity or things to bring up or particularly flag here in this meeting. But if there was language in a report or something that you had questions about, we're happy to try to address that.
Yeah, I think this was coming from groups in Chinatown that had foiled for this. There were a number of concerns, so I appreciate the follow-up and will definitely like to do that. It would be really great if it's possible to have a public follow-up in the Environmental Protection Committee. I don't know if that's something that could be arranged where the public could, ask whatever numerous questions they have, because this seems to be a major concern, at least from my experience with a number of emails I've received.
Yeah, if you would mind,
yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt to talk over you, but if you wouldn't mind just putting that request into an email along with like the list of questions, because I think it's, it's most productive if we're going to have a conversation about it for our team to be aware of the questions in advance, so we can make sure that, we've got people who are prepped on the information and have answers to actually share, and we can put stuff together into slides for you, as opposed to coming in cold, getting questions, and then we have to say, we'll review and get back to you, which I know just frustrates everyone. So if you don't mind putting the request.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, Lauren, 100%. And I've asked that group to do that. And then to the second question about the independent environmental consultant. What do we?
So I think we started addressing this during the dismantle when we brought on the independent monitor for the end of the dismantle phase. The city was pretty clear at the time that there was they were pulling from a discretionary budget to do that for dismantle, but this was not going to be part of the overall facility budget for the facility construction. So that's not something that's included. I will say we do have a third-party monitor on, but they are contracted under the TPOG team and they are a licensed professional certified environmental monitor that will be doing all of the environmental monitoring for this project. But for what you're specifically asking, the independent environmental monitor, that is not part of the budget for the BBJ, and that's not something that the city is moving forward with at this time.
Okay, I guess that's something to be taken offline that maybe we could still continue to pursue. I know there's great interest in that, and it does seem really critical. If not, then it would be very helpful to have that your environmental consultant be present at an upcoming public meeting so that we can sort of manage that. And then, you mentioned monthly reports. How often are we going to be seeing the reports? I don't know if you mentioned monthly, actually, just said reports. How often will we be seeing, or can the public access the environmental reports?
We will continue to do as we did during dismantle and publish those reports on a monthly basis. But again, if as we did during the dismantle phase, if folks see something or hear something or have questions, mid-month, no one needs to wait until the end of the month to check on site conditions. So while it takes us some time to make sure that we're compiling all the data at the end, we're clarifying, any exceedances that occurred, we're making sure we have everything documented and we can explain what's going on, and we publish those on a monthly basis. If you're walking by the site and you hear something that seems really loud, or you're seeing something like, you might see something that seems like dust or something in the air. If you have questions, please, again, the contact information is up here on the screen. It's also in the chat. Please reach out to our CCL. The sooner people do it, a lot of times, what happened during dismantle in Manhattan, what currently happens on some of the other projects around the city, is someone will send us an email and say they saw dust 2 days ago on the site. At which point we can go back and check the monitoring data, but it's a little hard for us to get out and verify what's going on in real time. So the most helpful thing you can do is, if you're seeing, hearing, feeling something that seems a little off to you, or you want to know about it, immediately pick up the phone or send an email, call, shoot. If you have a photograph or a video of what you're seeing on the site, send it over to us. But do that as close to real time as you can, because our CCL can go out there, connect with the project team. We can put eyes on the site immediately and try to verify what's going on and get back to you as quickly as possible. So that's what I would urge everyone to do. And we will do our best on our end to be responsive and to get you timely answers.
It's good to hear that, Lauren, although a great deal of this is, of course, invisible. It's not just dust that is appearing on your, handbag. You really have to reconsider. I mean, these are the same things that came up over the years, and I can't believe that we're still not kind of making more headway with the idea of the independent consultant and the idea of more frequent reports on what's going on the site. I cannot, of course, these things come out daily. Mm-hmm. Is there some way that this could be published more frequently? It would be really helpful for your office to consider that. It really is important. Just one last question. Where are we at with the archaeology in the excavation that's taken place so far? We haven't heard anything about that.
Sure. So we have an archaeological plan approved. I actually can bring up a previous slide here. We have identified potential areas that might be affected. We're going to have, as we are performing excavation work, even some of the secant drilling, we'll have an archaeologist on site for the duration of those activities to keep an eye on material as it's being either excavated or drilled up. If they identify anything that might qualify as a archaeological material or artifact, they will stop the operation in that location and investigate. So this plan has been approved by LPC and will be in place as soon as we start construction.
What about at White Street? Was there no excavation done? Was there anything?
This is exactly on White Street, and right now White Street was excavated down to a foot or two from the previous dismantling project. And right now, let me show you what it looks like here. It's basically looking like this. So you can see there isn't much excavation at this point. And as a matter of fact, Alice, there's live Con Ed lines that are running through this street, which is what Con Ed is working on. Once those are decommissioned in the next 6 months or next 5 months, hopefully less, we're going to start excavating in that area, and that's when the archaeologists will be on site in those specific locations.
And can that be a report that's also given monthly so that we are aware of what's going on there?
I will lean on our client for that.
Okay. Okay.
Sure.
All right. I will leave you with thanks. I have a billion other questions, but I think that with some sort of commitment to coming to the Community Board's Environmental Protection Committee to discuss a lot of these issues a little bit more in depth would be a really helpful start. And thanks.
Thank you. I said 6 months for Con Ed, so it's already April. So it's the next 2 to 3 months. They should be done with that work. So that's just the correction. As time is flying.
Okay, great. Thank you both. The next hand I see up Sorry, I can't tell if this is a name or just the name of a phone. It says Ang Galaxy S25. Um,
Well, I'm Randall Eng. It might be
oh,
me.
okay.
All
All
right,
right,
thank
Randall,
you.
go ahead and ask your question.
All
Thank
right, a very quick observation. First, George, thank you very much for a very comprehensive presentation. A lot of my questions have been answered already, but I think the dewatering process is going to be very challenging. I'm not sure that I know what you intend to do regarding the water that you extract. How will that be disposed of?
That's a great question. So as we are pumping water out, it goes into a large settling tank where it's monitored environmentally, and it then goes back into the water system. This entire system goes through the review process from the DP, DC, all the environmental groups before it's even put into place. So we'll be checking the quality of that water, putting it through a settling tank through that process, and then it goes back into the
Yeah.
sewer system.
Where is the settling tank going to be in place? Where on the site?
Sure. So it's right now we're looking at, let me just bring a photo. So our plan as of now, and this might change as we're finalizing, is going to be, of course, within the site fence on the south east portion of the site, probably around here somewhere.
Because it's probably going to be very large. It's going to have a substantial capacity, I would think. My concern is that the infrastructure, as everyone knows, is very old over there, and I can see a potential problem with that infrastructure being overtaxed if a enormous quantity of water has to be disposed of through that
Sure.
system.
No, it's a great point. And it seems it's a massive footprint, but the dewatering process, the actual pumping of water is more gradual. It needs to be controlled. So it's not like we are rushing out millions of gallons. It's going to happen gradually. And once the level is stabilized, it will then be much lesser extent because the perimeter of the site will be really sealed, so to speak.
No,
But
I've had personal experience with
uh,
flooded basements, so
I
I
can
know what it
imagine.
can be
No,
when you've got to
I hear you.
dispose.
It's
Yes,
we leave it to the experts if with the agencies, the environmental agencies, if they feel comfortable and they approve our plans, we go ahead and execute this. So um, I appreciate the question. It's a good question, but hopefully all the engineers that are approving our plans
yes.
are right, which we have confidence that they are. This is happening throughout the city, and everybody stays dry.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you, Randall. Thanks for your question. Before I call on the next person, there's a related question or a question related to dewatering in the chat from John Alpert. So maybe you can quickly address this one, George. If the water table goes down, so as you guys are monitoring, if you do see a drop in the water table below, what you're aiming for, how does that get normalized? Like
Uh,
you don't
with
just kind of shrug, right? Like what does the
no,
team do?
if it's on the exterior of the site, we then slow down the interior dewatering. So if anything, the dewatering levels will fluctuate within the site. The water table on the outside of the site should not move because we're drawing out from the center. It gets very complicated when we talk about how the cone is very deep down. But if in the extreme event that the water table on the outside does start to get influenced, we will then stop our pumping procedures and let that naturally go back to its natural level. But that is a very unlikely anomaly to occur.
And you do have, I think on that slide where you were showing kind of alert levels, you
Mhm.
have alerts that would go off before you
Absolutely.
actually like cross the threshold where
Oh,
it's an
yeah.
issue, right? Okay.
So yeah, our dewatering, I can go back to that, should be, yeah, here. So basically, we have criteria, just like the other monitoring. If the groundwater level fluctuates below 2 feet from our baseline, it gives us an alert. So the alert says, look, you have a potential issue here. Go investigate. So we go and look at that area and we adjust the pumps as needed. If we could go to the limit, which is 5 feet, then we really will stop work and decide what to do with the pumping. And that goes to our dewatering experts and engineers that we have on site to be monitoring this.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks, George.
Mhm.
All right. I see 2 other hands up. I think we have time for some more questions. So Gary, why don't you go next?
Yes, hi, this is Gary Watt, Special Assistant to the President at Chongpak. I have a couple of questions, namely, actually 3 questions. First one I want to point out is pertaining to the current conditions slide depicting the overhead view of the construction site. Can we flip to that slide for a moment?
Of course.
Okay, so looking at this slide, my question pertains to the existing foundational wall that's still attached physically to Chongpak building. As you can see, where it dugs a little bit about it. What are the intentions of this segment right now for that wall?
So that's a great question, Gary. So this wall here is the old wall of the old facility. It used to run up Chongpak, right adjacent to it, as you can see here, the different color, and you're very well familiar. Just for context here, this wall was taken down by the dismantlement project and was capped and watertight, waterproofed at this point. This will stay in place. Our construction is within the interior of that wall, so we are not going to touch that wall, so to speak. We're going to be drilling our secants on the inside line of that wall, and later on we're going to have our foundation walls that are within the interior of the actual SOE wall.
Okay.
So to answer your question, we're leaving that where it is.
Yep.
In place.
So another question goes back to the dewatering diagram. Can we flip to that?
Sure.
Okay. So looking at this particular diagram, I understand that the dam is going to contain water inside this the perimeter. Yeah, my question is more about how can you prevent water from entering into the surrounding properties, namely, Chongpak, for example. I understand that you might contain water within your construction site. How do you prevent, what is compressed water from transferring over to the surrounding areas?
So I'm trying to think of a simple answer here, but the water table is the danger here is for the water table going down, because we are drawing water down, and that's the risk that we're monitoring. The water table going up would be caused by external factors. It could be a massive storm, a flood, God forbid we get a massive flood from the coast. That would be the only potential influence on the water table. Since we're drawing water down here in the interior of the site, the only risk which we're controlling would be to draw down the water. We do not want to draw down the water. And as you can see, our monitoring is looking at negative factors, -2 for alert and -5 for criteria. So naturally, the only cause for the water table to go up surrounding the site or even within the site would be a very bad storm event or outside factor. I don't know if that answers the question.
This is probably something better posed to an engineer.
Imagine sitting in your bathtub at home and it's empty and the bathroom is full of water, but your bathtub is empty. That water on the outside of the bathtub shouldn't change unless, I don't know, you turn on the faucet in another room. So it's controlled. It's not going to change.
I mean, I guess my question pertains to when you insert pressure, downward pressure on this water that's existing.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
The natural inclination is to believe that somehow this water will transfer somewhere, right?
Yeah, it just goes into the earth. The water table goes all the way down to rock. So imagine this fluctuates. I'm not a geologist. I'm trying to explain this as best as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only asking because our Chongpak is so close to you guys.
Of course, absolutely. We take it very seriously. We looked at the Chongpak type of foundations that are in place. We looked at the surrounding buildings. So the most important thing is to keep the water table where it is and not draw it down. If it goes up, it would not be caused by the dewatering. It would be caused by actual flood or some type of a natural event.
Okay. So I guess my last question pertains to what we kind of covered the other day about your intended use of Chongpak's residential curbside as the construction site driveway.
Sure.
I just want to know why can't we just move your driveway further down the block? I mean, it just seems like a major disruption to the residents,
I hear you.
operations.
So the way the site is constrained by the property limits, we are very tight on space. Just to make the answer quick, you are referring to this area here. This is what it looked like during the dismantlement project.
Right.
This is what it looks like now. So we are going to be installing, instead of having this fence here, we're going to install these type of barriers to keep people from going out into this no parking, no standing zone. We'll work with you. We'll meet with you regularly to coordinate with your garbage pickups that are coming. But any type of emergency vehicle that needs to come here and access the building, we'll be able to move these quickly out of the way. It will actually be more beneficial than what was previously there, which is.
Right. I guess my question now is why can't it be moved further inward?
Inward, this here?
Yes, so that this driveway your driveway doesn't have to be in front of our premises. You know?
Yeah, it's unfortunately just the limit of the site, and we're constrained by all the space that we need. So if we were to push that down, it would keep us from conducting operations. Yeah.
So I don't think I understand what these constraints are. Can you clarify what these constraints are?
Sure, absolutely. It's the number of staging that's needed for material, the number of trucks, our temporary electrical system, which is going to be a massive vault that will be out there. We have settling tanks, as we mentioned earlier, for the dewatering. There's just a number of material and activity going on, and it's just take everything that we can. And there's trailers here on the opposite side. It's just it's our space, so we need to utilize it. Yeah.
So ultimately, it's just I don't hear a reason why other than you have materials moving, which is that's a given. You have a construction site, but why can't this be further inward?
Simple answer is unfortunately we need the space.
But it happens to be Chongpak space. That's my so
sure. The Chongpak space is going to be as it previously was. We're going to maintain this, and I hope nobody was exiting here. People will be guided to go down here.
Yeah, I just want to.
There just seems to be a lack of common courtesy here. This is just an invasion
I hear you.
Yeah, I want to chime in with Gary. This is Stephanie at Chongpak as well, because this is our residence here. This is a day-to-day in and out for all our residents. This has been already a huge disruption of their life. We're talking about day-to-day hearing constant noise, constant vibration. The tenants are also very scared every time they see and hear all these disruptions, and they are just coming to us and saying, like, what else is going on? How long will this last? This is going to be years and years. And we just want to know if you're going to take away our front door entrance. This is really unacceptable.
No, I appreciate that question, but we're not taking away the front door entrance, just to be clear.
You're talking about constant deliveries and trucks moving in and out. So something else has to be done here.
Good morning, guys.
Okay, so why don't we, George, why don't we
LDC? But actually, when we spoken last time, yesterday, the major concern that I cannot sacrifice our safety for our tenants for your convenience. Gary was right. Move up to own property and just take over the easement. Let everyone enjoy the sidewalk. not
Okay, I
only
don't think
from
this
the
is
from
something
the
we're gonna solve here right now. And just in the interest of time, because we're already well over 11 o'clock, and I see there's still 3 hands up that I wanted to be able to call on and take questions from. So why don't we just we'll table this right now. I think we'll go back with TPOG, look at this in more detail, see if there's something we can do. We can visit with you guys, Sherman, Gary, Stephanie, out on the site and kind of talk this through. So I'm not brushing this off at all. I think it just needs a little bit further investigation and some more conversation. So we will continue this conversation. Absolutely. I do just
Sure.
want to see if we can so thank you guys. And we will follow up with you after this call to set up a time to meet with you and discuss this further.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
When you arrange that meeting, can you please have the electeds also notify the elected so we can be part of that conversation?
Sure, I think that's doable. Yeah, we'll follow up with you, Assembly Member. Okay, so moving on, there are 3 other hands up. I think we can try to go till about 11:15. George, if you can stay on, we'll call on Tammy and then Connor and then Assembly Member Lee, and then we're not going to take more questions after that. So, Tammy, go ahead. Your hand was up next.
I tend to prefer to let the public speak, as you know, but I'm going to talk as a matter of process. I put my note in the chat and I'm reading it out to be on record. This working group is convened with our electeds as part of official agency business. Discussions here constitute formal agency communications. And I want to say that it's extremely frustrating to hear, oh yes, we can come to a meeting at the community board and speak to the public if you send me a follow-up email. No. That's not the way this is supposed to work. Anything that the request to present before an environmental protection committee and the community board is an official request that was made here by Alice. Whether you're going to say, well, she's not the head of the chair of the board. Okay, fine. I'm elevating Alice's ask. The next environmental protection committee is scheduled for April 20th. Right? Kindly reply to CB1. You have everybody's emails from this group to confirm whether your team's available to present at that evening. There should be no procedural delays. And can you send me an email for follow-up to ensure that the public is informed or that the public gets responses? We're happy to compile and share questions that came from the information that the public had to foil. But you, in terms of agency and the working team, already have those materials. They've already been reviewed by your processes internally. So I would guarantee that we will get you a list of questions a week prior to the meeting, but I need Lauren as the representative for this whole project to be the representative and come back and say, we've heard this request, we will get back to you. It really just struck me the wrong way, and I'm being very straightforward about it, that this is an official group, and yet we have to follow up in writing. The same kind of conversation goes on the second point about
Tammy,
Chung
sorry,
Pa.
okay, we'll
Hold
move on
on,
to
just
we can
let
move on
me.
to Chung Pak in a moment. I just want to clarify, my request was for the questions that you guys have to be put into writing. We'll absolutely follow up with you on coming to the environmental committee. That's not an issue, but we would appreciate having the questions in advance just to make sure that we can be prepared by whatever date we're going to come. So that's
Not a problem.
That's a
It's
reasonable request. Thank you.
not a problem. And then for Chung Pak, I want to correct George very clearly. That space does not belong to you. That is the public space. That is a public street. That is the sidewalk outside of Chung Pak. It is not part of your construction space or your landlocked. So it is very disturbing to have them say, well, it's our construction space. It's actually not your space. It's the space of the public and the space for Chung Pak, who is dealing with everything. So how and why you can't manage to move 20 feet further in is a little, there's no let me see what I can do. Let's see why we can't. There's nothing that's been said other than it's our space, we're taking it. And I take that supposition back. If you were a restaurant, you'd have to come to the community to take that space. So it's not yours, it belongs to the public. And I am beseeching you with everything that Chung Pak and the neighbors have to go through, try and be a little bit reasonable here and move back to not be completely in front of them for the next God knows how many years. And with that, I will be quiet. Just frustrated.
Thanks, Tammy. As we said, we were going to look into that issue, and there will be some follow-up discussions that will be scheduled. So, Connor, I see your hand is up next. Do you want to go ahead?
Sure, yeah, I'll try to be quick. Yeah, first, I mean, I echo the concerns around the staging and the access for Chungpak and yeah, we definitely want to be on a meeting about that. It seems like it's an issue that can be addressed, especially given how impactful it will be to Chungpak. So yeah, we would definitely want to be on that meeting as well. And then I just wanted to ask for George, just I think that with the dewatering, there's a lot of concerns just given um, the significance of the project and the location over Collect Pond, like perhaps like a uniquely significant amount of groundwater on the site and how dense this area is. I'm just curious if there's like case examples of a dewatering that has happened to this magnitude before, whether any of the contractors on this project were involved in the project of that magnitude, and if they're and how the frequency at which like a dewatering of this scale in such a dense urban area has happened before, and if you can just share some of those and any follow-up after the call just would be helpful because it feels like a particularly unique and particularly um, risky dewatering process, like risky being a word that you used.
Thanks, Connor. It's not risky, it's the risk that we're controlling. So yeah, we'll gladly provide you with a list. There's a number of projects that we've performed and are being performed right now by various subcontractors throughout New York. So we can follow up with that.
But can you just for this meeting, like is there one that you are confident is the scale of this project that's already been completed?
Absolutely. There's the Gateway project that has some dewatering going on. Hudson Yards has some dewatering elements, which with the Amtrak, and I can provide you a more specific list after the meeting.
And was that the same approach to the dewatering that you're doing here with secant walls?
Secant walls, yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Connor. And last but certainly not least, Assemblymember Lee, I know you have some more questions for us.
Yeah, well, thanks again. I do want to reiterate the concerns we have for the protection of the Chungpak seniors and the services that are being provided in there. To that end, I am very concerned about the 6 p.m. to midnight construction hours. It's a little ironic that this timeline has been extended out, and there's like the sense of urgency that needs to happen when the city has delayed this project for so many years already. I mean, for residents to bear the burden of the city's timeline, I think is unfair. And there needs to be a little bit more humanity put into the planning of this project and to understand the actual people who are being impacted by this construction. So we need to have a conversation about the construction hours and that timeline for this project. This is not going to be, we will not accept 6 p.m. to midnight as a given for this project, given the impacts that this is having on the residents already to date. These are real people who cannot move. And if you don't understand the humanity of what is happening to them through this project, we have to have another conversation. And we need to have a real discussion about that. The other question I have, you mentioned again this accelerated timeline and the idea we understand like that the design is going to happen as the building is being built. So I'd like to understand better how the community engagement process is going to continue. And I mean, to me, the idea that you're going to build a building before the design is finalized I don't know how that's going to happen. I can understand maybe like you understand like generally maybe the foundation, but I don't know how you start building walls and like constructing something without knowing what the final design is. And I don't know
It's
how
a great.
how that's actually efficient. But also I want to understand how the community is going to be able to engage in a process when you're overcommitting to structural elements that will not be able to be changed once they're built in and the design hasn't been set.
That's a great question. All the work that's going to be going on for the SOE and foundation is going to take about 2.5 years. The design will be completed well in advance of that. Towards the end of this year, we're going to have a completed design for the building. The community is involved in multiple design input workshops as the design progresses, and their comments are taken back and incorporated for elements such as the facade and other exterior commonplaces. And Lauren can certainly chime in on that process. But the actual foundation of the building will not be impacted by the changes that are made going up. It's a pretty final state that it's in right now.
Yep, and just to add on to that, so we have been actively engaging with the community even before the TPOG and HOK team came on. We had design input workshops to inform the design guidelines that were part of the RFP and part of the contract documents that this team needs to adhere to. Since they came on and since we have the lead architects HOK on board, we've held 3 public design workshops, interactive, to present the design and get feedback from the community. And each subsequent workshop, we've presented not only with the design updates, but also how and where specifically community input has been informing that design. We've also been collecting feedback online from community members and been publishing documents that show that provide responses to every single comment and piece of design feedback that we've received from the community. We are currently getting ready to present to PDC preliminary. So following our 3rd design workshop that was held, I think, last month, we are going to the community board actually next week. We're presenting to CB1's land use committee. That presentation will focus again on the design updates and specifically how the design has been responsive to feedback that we've gotten from the general community as well as the community board. And all of this information is feeding into our PDC preliminary submission. And those of you who are familiar with the PDC process, once we get through PDC preliminary, a lot of the core elements of the design are also kind of set. And by that point, we're moving from preliminary to final, and it's really working out more of the details. So again, the design, where we're going to be at by the time this team starts, even, pouring foundations, et cetera, we'll be pretty far along. So I think we're making sure. I hear your concern, Assembly Member. It's a great concern. I'm glad you're here and representing and fighting for the community. We've also been doing that on our end, and I think we've built in a strong process that has provided a lot of opportunities for design engagement along the way. So we'll make sure that continues. I see you're talking and you came off of mute, but for some reason I can't hear you. We could earlier. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe try muting and unmuting again.
Okay. I don't know. Can you hear me
No,
now?
we can hear you. It's good.
Okay. I just took off my Bluetooth. So on the independent community monitor, this is something that the elected officials have been advocating for a very long time. I think that this is very important and will be an important resource for the community as we go through the rest of this process. And, if the deputy mayor's office is on now, I also want to bring this to them to say that we should find funding to have a independent community monitor on the site. I think it's very important given the density of this work and the level of work and the extent to which this work is going to be happening and impacting the community. And I know that the deputy mayor's team may be new to this project now and getting up to speed, but I think this has been something that we have been asking for a few years now, and I think it's important that we institute for this project. And then finally, we would like to see that meeting with Chung Pak to talk further about the impacts of construction. If we can get that in the near future, we would appreciate that next 2 weeks or before the end of the month. I think that that is important before we continue. And I would like to say that we do not want 6 to midnight construction work happening until that meeting has happened.
Okay, thank you, Assembly Member. And yes, we have representatives from the city who are on and hearing this, and we'll follow up with your office as well as with Chung Pak to get that meeting scheduled. So thank you. Thank you to everyone. I know we've stayed on long, but I think a lot of these were important discussions to be had, and I'm glad we have this space to air this out and to hear from all of you. So thank you so much. Until next time, we'll be here. And again, if anyone has any questions in the meantime or anything that they want to add, please do reach out to our CCL. Our CCL makes sure that the entire city team is seeing and aware of any questions and concerns that come in. So when you're emailing Manhattan CCL, you are effectively emailing all of us. So thank you so much. I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.